Captain Hyunwoo Park stood on the bridge of the UNS Horizon, staring at the screen before him. Something was out there in the darkness of space. Something big. Something that shouldn't be there. "Sir, the signal is getting weaker," said Lieutenant Chen from the communications station. "Whatever it is, it's dying." Hyunwoo rubbed his tired eyes. They had been exploring this sector for 3 months now, mapping new star systems and looking for signs of life. Earth had joined the Galactic Council only 15 years ago, and they were still the new kids in the neighborhood. Every mission mattered. Every decision was watched. "How far?" he asked. 2 hours at maximum speed," answered the navigator. Hyunwoo looked at the distress signal data. It wasn't in any language the computer recognized. It wasn't even a standard galactic frequency. But it was clearly a call for help. The pattern repeated every 30 seconds, growing fainter each time. "Dr. Choi, what do you think?" he asked. Dr. Yuna Choi looked up from her science station. She was Earth's best xenobiologist, someone who had spent her entire career studying alien life. Her dark eyes showed concern as she studied the readings. "The ship is old, Captain. Very old. The technology doesn't match anything in our database. And there are life signs aboard. Thousands of them." "Thousands?" Ambassador Taejin Kim stepped forward. He was Earth's diplomatic representative on the horizon, a man who had spent decades in international relations before joining the space program. "That's not an exploration vessel. That's a colony ship." Hyunwoo felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Protocol said they should report to Earth Command and wait for orders. Protocol said they should be careful about unknown contacts. Protocol said a lot of things, but Protocol didn't account for thousands of lives hanging in the balance. "Set course," he ordered. "Maximum speed. And send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we're investigating a potential humanitarian crisis." The Horizon's engines powered up, pushing the ship through the void toward the unknown vessel. As they drew closer, the sensors began painting a clearer picture. The ship was massive, easily 3 times the size of the Horizon. Its hull was covered in a strange crystalline substance that reflected their scanning beams in unusual patterns. "Captain, I'm picking up damage across multiple sections," reported the tactical officer. "Hull breaches, power failures, life support systems failing." "Sir, if we don't do something soon, everyone on that ship will be dead within 6 hours." Yuna studied her readouts carefully. "The life forms don't match any known species in the galactic database. Their biology is unique, carbon-based, but with silicon compounds integrated into their cellular structure. I've never seen anything like it. Try hailing them again," Hyunwoo ordered. The communications officer worked his console, cycling through every known frequency and language protocol. For a long moment, there was only static. Then, suddenly, a voice came through. It was weak, distorted, but unmistakably intelligent. "Please. Help. Children. Dying." The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood those words, regardless of what language they were spoken in. Desperation sounded the same across the galaxy. "Open a channel," Hyunwoo said. "This is Captain Hyunwoo Park of the United Nations Starship Horizon, representing Earth. We have received your distress call. We are here to help." Another long pause. Then the voice returned, stronger this time, as if gathering the last reserves of energy. "Earth? The new species? You would help us? When all others have refused?" Ambassador Kim exchanged a glance with the captain. "All others have refused?" he repeated quietly. "What does that mean?" Hyunwoo leaned forward in his chair. "We're sending over a rescue team. Please prepare to receive boarding craft. We'll get your people to safety." "Captain, wait." Taejin touched his arm. "We don't know who these people are. We don't know why others refuse to help them. We could be walking into a diplomatic nightmare. We could." Hyunwoo agreed. Or we could save thousands of lives. I know which choice I can live with. 1%. We could save thousands of lives. Within the hour, 3 rescue shuttles launched from the horizon. Yuna volunteered to lead the first contact team, accompanied by medical staff and engineers. As her shuttle approached the damaged vessel, she felt her heart racing. This was what she had trained for her entire life. This was why she had left Earth. The airlock doors opened, and Yuna stepped into another world. The corridor beyond was beautiful and terrible at the same time. The walls were covered in the same crystalline material as the hull, glowing faintly with internal light. But everything was damaged. Cracks ran through the crystals. The air was thin and cold. Emergency lights flickered weakly, and then she saw them. They were tall and slender, with skin that seemed to shimmer between solid and translucent. Their bodies were partially crystalline, reflecting light in rainbow patterns. Their eyes were large and expressive, filled with exhaustion and fear. And there were so many of them. Adults holding children, elderly ones sitting against walls, all of them watching the humans with a mixture of hope and terror. One of them stepped forward. She was clearly old, with crystals that had grown dim and cloudy with age. When she spoke, her mouth didn't move, but Yuna heard the words clearly in her mind. I am Lithara, elder of the Velthara. You came. After all this time, someone finally came. Yuna felt tears forming in her eyes. We're here to help. Tell me what you need. Lithara reached out a crystalline hand, and Yuna took it without hesitation. The moment their skin touched, images flooded Yuna's mind. She saw worlds, beautiful worlds with crystal cities that sang in the wind. She saw a proud civilization of telepathic beings who lived in harmony with their environment. Then she saw the fear. She saw other species looking at the Velthara with suspicion. She saw borders closing. She saw the Galactic Council voting, again and again, to deny them sanctuary. She saw this ship, the last of their kind, fleeing from system to system, begging for a place to call home. She saw children dying. She saw hope fading. She saw a people who had done nothing wrong, except be different. When the connection broke, Yuna was crying openly. She squeezed Lithara's hand. You're safe now, she promised. Earth will help you. I don't care what the Council says. We won't turn you away. Back on the horizon, Hyunwoo received the reports from the rescue teams. The situation was worse than they had imagined. The Velthara ship was falling apart. Life support would fail completely within hours. And there were over 3,000 people aboard. We can't fit them all on the horizon, his first officer said quietly. Then we'll make room, Hyunwoo replied. Clear the cargo bays. Convert the recreation areas. Use every spare inch of space. No one stays on that ship. Alderflime. 2. Ambassador Kim was already composing a message to Earth. His fingers shook slightly as he typed. He knew what this would mean. The Galactic Council had rejected the Velthara. Every member species had voted to deny them entry. If Earth accepted them, it would create a diplomatic crisis. But as he watched the screens showing Velthara children being carried aboard the horizon, wrapped in emergency blankets and clinging to their parents, he knew there was only one choice that humanity could make. He finished the message and sent it to Earth Command. Then he turned to the captain. Sir, we should prepare for consequences. Hyunwoo watched as more refugees came aboard his ship. He saw his crew members offering water, food, and warm smiles. He saw fear slowly transforming into hope on alien faces. Let them come, he said quietly. We'll face whatever consequences there are. Together. After, the news reached Earth like a thunderclap. Within hours, every news channel was broadcasting images of the Velthara refugees aboard the horizon. The crystalline aliens looked strange and beautiful under the harsh lights of the cargo bays that had been converted into emergency shelters. Children with translucent skin clung to their parents. Elderly ones sat in quiet exhaustion. Medical teams moved among them, trying to help despite knowing nothing about their biology. Secretary General Bo-Ra Shin stood in her office in Geneva, watching the footage on a dozen screens at once. She had barely slept since Captain Park's message arrived. The Galactic Council had already sent 3 urgent communications, each one more threatening than the last. "They're calling it a violation of interstellar law," said her chief of staff, reading from a tablet. "The Velthara were declared inadmissible by unanimous vote. Any species that accepts them will face immediate sanctions." Bo-Ra turned away from the screens. Inadmissible. Such a clean word for condemning 3,000 people to death. The Council says they're dangerous, that their telepathy could be used as a weapon, that accepting them would destabilize galactic security. And what evidence do they provide? "Fear," her chief of staff answered quietly. "Just fear." Bo-Ra looked at the footage again. She saw a Velthara mother holding her child, rocking gently back and forth. The gesture was universal. Love looked the same everywhere in the galaxy. "Call an emergency session of the United Assembly," she ordered. "Every nation's representative. We vote in 48 hours. The assembly chamber filled quickly. Representatives from every nation on Earth gathered, along with military advisors, scientists, and diplomats who specialized in galactic relations. The air was thick with tension. Outside the building, protests had already begun. On one side, thousands of people held signs reading, "Welcome home," and "No one is illegal." On the other side, smaller groups waved banners warning about alien infiltration and economic collapse. In a small apartment in Seoul, Hana Song watched the protests on her phone. She was 22 years old, a university student studying history and political science. For the past 6 hours, she had been organizing online, spreading information, trying to cut through the fear and misinformation. "They're just like us," she typed in message after message. "Their families running from persecution. How is this different from any other refugee crisis in our history?" Her phone buzzed constantly. Some messages were supportive. Others were filled with hate. She ignored the hate and focused on the facts. She shared academic articles about refugee economics. She posted historical examples of refugee integration. She reminded people that every wave of refugees in human history had been met with the same fears. And every time, those fears had proven unfounded. Within hours, her posts were being shared millions of times. News channels started quoting her. Other students joined her movement. By the time the assembly met, thousands of young people were marching through the streets of major cities around the world, carrying signs and chanting, "When did we forget? When will we learn?" Inside the assembly chamber, the debate had become heated. "We cannot afford to anger the Galactic Council," argued the representative from France. "We are new to the galactic community. Our economy depends on trade with other worlds. Our technology is centuries behind theirs. If they isolate us, we will suffer. So we should let innocent people die to protect our bank accounts," shot back the representative from Brazil. "Is that what we've become?" The representative from China stood. "We must think practically. The council says these beings are dangerous. We know nothing about their telepathy. What if they can control our minds? What if this is a trick?" Dr. Yuna Choi, who had been brought back to Earth to testify, rose to speak. Her voice was steady, despite her exhaustion. "I have touched minds with Lithara, their elder. I have seen their history, their pain, their truth. They are not dangerous. They are desperate. Their telepathy is no more a weapon than our ability to speak. Yes, they can share thoughts and emotions, but only through willing contact. They cannot control minds. They cannot invade privacy without permission. These claims are propaganda, spread by species who fear what they don't understand." "And you believe everything they showed you?" challenged a representative from Russia. Yuna met his eyes. "Because truth feels different from lies. Because I have spent my entire career studying alien species, and I know genuine fear when I see it. Those people have been running for years. They have watched their children grow sick and die. They have begged every civilization in the galaxy for help and been turned away. When Captain Park offered to help them, they cried, not because they were manipulating us, but because someone finally showed them basic human decency. The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then Admiral Dongmin Li stood. He was the commander of Earth's defense fleet, a man who had spent 40 years in military service. His opinion carried enormous weight. I understand the concerns about security, he said. I share them. My job is to protect Earth and her people, but I have reviewed all the evidence the Council provided about the Velthara threat. Do you know what I found? Nothing. No records of violence. No history of aggression. Just reports that other species find them unsettling, that their appearance is disturbing, that their abilities are frightening. He paused, letting his words sink in. We have heard these arguments before. In our own history. Different appearances, different abilities, different religions, different colors of skin. We have heard every justification for turning away refugees, and every single time, we were wrong. Every single time, we discovered that the refugees enriched our cultures, strengthened our economies, and reminded us of our own humanity. This is different, someone argued. These are aliens, not humans. Is it different? Admiral Li challenged. Or is that just what we tell ourselves to justify cruelty? They breathe. They love their children. They build homes and create art. They laugh and cry and hope for better days. How different are they really? As the debate continued, Secretary General Shin sat in her office, preparing her own speech. She had been reading history books all night, studying Earth's long and shameful record of turning away refugees. The ships full of Jewish families turned away from American ports before World War II. The Syrian refugees denied entry to safe countries. The climate refugees blocked at borders. The same patterns, repeating over and over. And always, future generations looked back in horror and asked, how could they? How could they see people suffering and choose to do nothing? She would not let Earth make that mistake again. Not on her watch. Not while she had the power to stop it. When she finally stood before the assembly to give her speech, the entire world was watching. Cameras broadcast her image to every nation, every city, every home. Members of the assembly, she began. We face a choice that will define who we are as a species, not just to ourselves, but to the entire galaxy. We can choose safety. We can choose to protect our interests. We can choose to follow the Council's demands and turn these refugees away. She paused, looking across the sea of faces. Or, we can choose to be better. We can choose to remember our own history. We can choose to remember that we are descendants of refugees. Every single one of us. Our ancestors crossed oceans, deserts, and mountains looking for safety. Some found it. Many did not. And we promised ourselves that we would learn from those tragedies. We promised that we would never be the ones who closed the door. Her voice grew stronger. The Council tells us that accepting the Velthara will bring consequences. They threaten sanctions. They threaten isolation. They want us to be afraid. And maybe we should be. Maybe this decision will cost us. Maybe we will suffer for it. She looked directly into the cameras. But I would rather suffer for doing what is right than prosper from doing what is wrong. I would rather stand alone with our principles than stand with others in cruelty. And I believe that history will remember us not for our wealth or our power, but for the choices we made when innocent lives hung in the balance. The chamber erupted in applause and argument. The vote was called. Representatives entered their decisions into secure terminals. The world held its breath. In Seoul, Hana Song watched with thousands of other students gathered in a public square. In New York, families crowded around screens in Times Square. On the horizon, Captain Hyun-woo stood with Ambassador Kim, watching the vote count rise. The results appeared on screens worldwide. Earth had voted to accept the Velthara. Not unanimously, not without opposition, but by a clear majority. Humanity had chosen compassion over fear. In the cargo bay of the horizon, Lithara felt the decision ripple through the collective consciousness of her people. After years of rejection, after being expelled from world after world, someone had finally said yes. She wept, and her tears were crystals that fell like diamonds to the floor. The Velthara ship approached Earth orbit 6 weeks after the vote. Thousands of civilian vessels had gathered to meet them, forming a protective ring around the damaged colony ship. Small craft flew alongside, their hulls decorated with welcome messages in dozens of languages. Some ships broadcast music. Others simply flashed their lights in patterns of greeting. Lithara stood at the viewing port, watching Earth grow larger. The blue and green planet seemed to glow with life. After so many dead worlds, so many closed doors, the sight of home made her crystalline body shimmer with emotion. "It's beautiful," whispered a young Velthara beside her. His name was Kaleth, and he had been born on the colony ship. He had never seen a real planet before, never walked on soil, never felt natural sunlight. "Yes," Lithara agreed softly. "Yes, it is." And era. On Earth's surface, preparations had been underway for weeks. Cities worldwide had mobilized. Empty buildings were being converted into temporary housing. Medical facilities were being upgraded to handle crystalline biology. Schools were preparing integration programs. Engineers were designing compatible technology. In a small farming village in rural Korea, Ki-won Park stood in his rice fields, watching the sky. He was 73 years old, a farmer who had worked this land his entire life. When the government asked for volunteers to host Velthara families, he had been one of the first to raise his hand. "Are you sure about this?" his daughter had asked him. "They're aliens, father. We don't know what they'll be like." Ki-won had smiled. "When I was young, my family fled from war. We had nothing. A stranger took us in, gave us food and shelter. I never forgot that kindness. Now it's my turn to be that stranger." He had cleared 3 acres of his land and helped build small, crystalline structures where Velthara families could live. The structures looked strange next to his traditional farmhouse, but Ki-won thought they were beautiful, like sculptures made of frozen light. In Seoul, Soo-jin Hwang led a team of engineers working on habitat compatibility. She was one of Korea's top architects, and she had spent the past month designing buildings that could accommodate both human and Velthara needs. The crystalline beings needed certain light frequencies to stay healthy. They processed energy differently. They needed spaces that could resonate with their natural frequencies. "It's like learning to build in a new language," she explained to her team. "We have to think beyond our normal assumptions, question everything we know about construction and livability." Her assistant, a young man named Jae-min, held up a holographic design. "What about shared spaces? Places where humans and Velthara can interact comfortably." Soo-jin studied the design. "Good. But add more natural elements. Gardens. Water features. The Velthara connect deeply with natural environments. It helps them regulate their telepathy." The first shuttles landed in locations across the planet. In Korea, Japan, Brazil, Kenya, Canada, and dozens of other countries. The Velthara emerged slowly, hesitantly, their crystalline bodies shimmering in Earth's sunlight. Many of them fell to their knees, touching soil for the first time in years. Some wept. Others simply stood, overwhelmed by the sensation of wind and gravity and home. Ki-won was there when the first family arrived at his farm, a mother, father, and 2 young children. They looked exhausted and frightened. The mother clutched her children close, her crystalline skin reflecting the afternoon sun in rainbow patterns. Ki-won approached slowly, keeping his movements calm and non-threatening. He bowed deeply in the traditional way. "Welcome," he said simply. "Welcome home." The Velthara mother hesitated, then reached out tentatively. Ki-won took her hand, without fear. The telepathic connection opened, and he felt her overwhelming relief, her gratitude, her lingering fear that this might all be a dream. He squeezed her hand gently and smiled. "Not a dream," he said aloud. "You're safe now. You're home." But not everyone felt the same way. In cities around the world, protests continued. Some people were afraid. Others were angry that resources were being spent on aliens instead of humans. There were incidents. Vandalism of Velthara housing. Hate speech online. Isolated acts of violence. In a school in Tokyo, a young Velthara boy named Shenri sat alone in a classroom. He was 8 years old by human counting, one of the first Velthara children to attend a regular school. The other children stared at him, whispering. They didn't understand his crystalline skin, his quiet nature, his inability to speak their language fluently yet. During recess, 3 older boys surrounded him. One of them pushed him. "Go back to space, crystal freak." Shenri felt their emotions like sharp needles. Fear, confusion, anger that wasn't really about him, but about things he didn't understand. His own fear rose, and without meaning to, he projected it outward. The boys stumbled back, suddenly terrified for reasons they couldn't explain. A teacher found them moments later. Shenri was crying, his body flickering with distressed light. The boys were huddled together, shaking. No one knew exactly what had happened, but everyone was scared. The incident made news. Velthara child attacks. Human students. Read the headlines. Fear spread faster than facts. Dr. Yuna Choi heard about the incident within hours. She immediately reached out to Velthara scientists and human psychologists. They needed a solution. They needed something that would help both species feel safe. Working around the clock, the combined team developed what they called sea dampeners. Small devices worn like bracelets that gave Velthara control over their telepathic projections. The devices didn't block telepathy completely, but they prevented accidental emotional broadcasting. A Velthara could still choose to connect with someone, but it required conscious effort. The devices were distributed freely to all Velthara. Many wore them constantly at first, afraid of causing more incidents. But gradually, as trust built, some chose to remove them in safe spaces, in their homes, among friends, in communities where they felt accepted. Yuna also worked with schools to develop education programs. Human children learned about Velthara culture, biology, and communication. Velthara children learned about human expressions, verbal language, and social customs. Slowly, bridges began to form. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council had made good on their threats. Trade agreements were suspended, diplomatic channels closed. Earth's few allies in the galaxy faced pressure to distance themselves. Technology transfers stopped. Earth stood alone. Admiral Dongmin Li addressed the defense fleet from his command center. His officers looked worried. Cut off from galactic trade, Earth's advanced technology development would slow. They would be vulnerable. "Sir, our projections show significant economic impact," reported his chief analyst. "Within 6 months, we'll start seeing shortages in key materials. Within a year, our defense capabilities will begin to degrade." Admiral Li studied the reports carefully. Then he looked up at his officers. "And if we had turned the Velthara away, what would that have cost us?" The analyst looked confused. "Sir, our principles," Admiral Li said quietly. "Our humanity. Our ability to look at ourselves in the mirror. Those things don't show up in your economic projections. But they matter. They matter more than you know." He stood, addressing the entire command center. "Yes, we face challenges. Yes, there will be difficulties. But we've faced difficulties before. We've survived ice ages and plagues and wars. We've rebuilt from ashes more times than I can count. We'll find a way through this too." 18-2. His second in command spoke up. "Sir, The Velthara scientists have approached us. They want to help. They're offering to share their technology. Admiral Lee raised an eyebrow. What kind of technology? Crystal-based computing, telepathic interface systems, and something about propulsion. They say combining their crystalline technology with our engineering might create something revolutionary. A slow smile spread across Admiral Lee's face. Then, let's not waste any more time. Set up a joint research facility. Best scientists from both species. Let's show the galaxy what cooperation looks like. Back on Kiwon's farm, the Velthara family had settled into their new home. The children played in the rice fields, learning to feel mud between their toes. The mother had started creating art, using her crystalline body to capture and refract sunlight into patterns that took Kiwon's breath away. One evening, as the sun set over the fields, the Velthara father approached Kiwon. He gestured toward the house, then to the fields, then to himself. The message was clear, even without words. How can we repay you? Kiwon shook his head and smiled. He touched his own chest, then reached out and touched the Velthara's shoulder gently. Then he pointed to the children playing together in the distance, human and Velthara, laughing in the universal language of childhood. The Velthara father understood. This wasn't about debt. This wasn't about repayment. This was about something simpler and deeper. This was about being human, being decent, being the kind of person who helps when help is needed. They stood together watching the sunset, two fathers from different worlds, sharing a moment of peace. In Geneva, Secretary General Bo-Ra Shin received a report from Sujin's engineering team. The first human Velthara joint research facility had produced results faster than anyone expected. The combination of human innovation and Velthara crystalline technology was creating breakthroughs in multiple fields. She smiled as she read the report. Earth had been isolated by the Galactic Council, cut off from their technology and trade. But maybe, just maybe, that isolation would force humanity to discover something better. After all, necessity had always been humanity's greatest teacher. 2 years passed like water flowing through fingers. Earth had changed in ways no one could have predicted. In the joint research facility outside Seoul, Sujin stood before a holographic display showing the latest propulsion design. Beside her, a Velthara scientist named Thel Orn manipulated the data with movements of his crystalline hands. Together, they had spent 18 months developing what they called the resonance drive. The mathematics still seem impossible, Sujin said, shaking her head in wonder. We're talking about reducing travel time by 70%. Thel Orn's body shimmered with what Sujin had learned to recognize as amusement. Your species thinks in terms of pushing through space. We think in terms of harmonizing with it. Together, we found the balance. The technology was remarkable. Human engineering provided the structural framework and power management. Velthara crystalline technology allowed the ship to resonate with space itself, creating less resistance. It was a perfect fusion of two different ways of thinking, but the resonance drive was just one breakthrough among many. Velthara crystal computing had revolutionized Earth's information technology. Their medical knowledge had led to treatments for diseases humanity had struggled with for centuries. Their art had inspired new forms of human creativity. Their music, experienced through telepathic audio hybrid instruments, moved people to tears in concert halls worldwide. Earth's economy hadn't collapsed as the Galactic Council predicted. It had transformed. Trade within the solar system had exploded. Asteroid mining operations, enhanced by Velthara crystal sensing technology, had discovered unprecedented mineral wealth. New industries had emerged. New opportunities had opened. In Kiwon's village, the small Velthara settlement had grown. More families had arrived, attracted by the peaceful farming community. The village had become a model of integration. Human and Velthara children attended school together. Families shared meals. The Velthara had taught the farmers new techniques for reading soil health through crystalline sensing. The farmers had taught the Velthara the patience and wisdom of working with living things. Sung Ho Kang, a young liaison officer, visited the village regularly. His job was to help facilitate communication between human and Velthara communities, resolving misunderstandings and building bridges. He had learned basic telepathic communication, one of the first humans to do so. The key, he often told trainees, is remembering that difference doesn't mean wrong, it just means different. The Velthara don't communicate like us. They don't think like us. And that's okay. That's actually wonderful. Because we learn from each other. But while Earth prospered, something unexpected was happening across the galaxy. Other species were watching. Other refugees were paying attention. Ji Woo Nam, a journalist who had covered the Velthara arrival from the beginning, broke the story. Small groups of refugees from other species were sending desperate messages to Earth. The Prenti, a species of amphibious beings who had been displaced by climate change on their world. The Keth, silicon-based life forms rejected by carbon-based civilizations. The Mirana, a peaceful species fleeing persecution for their religious beliefs. Earth's experiment is being watched across the galaxy, Jiwoo reported on the evening news. We thought we were making a single decision about one species, but we were actually making a statement about who we are. And that statement is being heard by everyone who has been rejected, persecuted, or expelled. The messages kept coming. Dozens of species, hundreds of refugees, all looking to Earth as a beacon of hope in a galaxy that had turned its back on them. Secretary General Shin convened another emergency assembly meeting. The room buzzed with urgent conversation. This was no longer about 3,000 Velthara. This was about potentially millions of refugees from across the galaxy. We can't accept everyone, argued a representative from Germany. We have limited resources, limited space. We're already stretched, managing the Velthara integration. So we choose? Asked the representative from India. We say yes to some, and no to others? How do we make that choice? Admiral Lee stood. He looked older than he had 2 years ago, but his eyes were sharp. Perhaps we don't have to make that choice alone. Perhaps it's time to extend an invitation, not just to refugees, but to any species that shares our values. You're talking about forming a new alliance, said the representative from China, in direct opposition to the Galactic Council. I'm talking about offering an alternative, Admiral Lee corrected. The Council is built on fear and exclusion. We could build something based on cooperation and acceptance. We've proven it works. Look at what we've accomplished with the Velthara in just 2 years. The debate raged for hours. Outside, protests formed again. Some people demanded that Earth close its doors. Others insisted that Earth's moral obligation required them to help anyone in need. Hana Song, now 24 and a recognized voice in refugee advocacy, organized a global demonstration. Millions of people in hundreds of cities marched peacefully, carrying signs and broadcasting their message to the stars. Earth stands with the exiled. Earth welcomes the lost. Earth remembers what it means to be rejected, and we will not be the ones who reject others. While Earth debated, the Galactic Council made a decision of their own. The Drakhun Empire, the Council's largest military power, issued an ultimatum. It was delivered directly to Secretary General Shin's office through emergency diplomatic channels. The message was simple and brutal. Surrender all refugee species to Council authority within 30 days, or face corrective action. This is not negotiable. Admiral Lee read the message and immediately understood what corrective action meant. Invasion, blockade, possibly bombardment. The Drakhun Empire had the military power to enforce their demands. Earth's defenses, even enhanced by Velthara technology, could not stand against a full Empire fleet. We need to evacuate the refugees, suggested his second-in-command. Get them off planet. Hide them somehow. No, Admiral Lee said firmly. We don't hide them. We don't surrender them. We stand. Sir, we can't win this fight. Probably not, Admiral Lee agreed. But we can choose how we face it. We can choose what we stand for, even when standing costs us everything. He called Captain Hyun-woo Park, who had been promoted to admiral after the Velthara rescue. Hyun-woo, I need you to take the Horizon and every ship we can spare to the edge of the solar system. The Drakhoon are coming. I know, sir. Hyun-woo replied. His voice was calm. My crew is ready. We all knew this day might come. Admiral Lee felt pride swell in his chest. You understand what I'm asking? We're outnumbered. Outgunned. This might be a one-way trip, sir. 2 years ago, I made a choice to help people who needed help. I haven't regretted that choice for a single second. I'm not going to start now. By the 70. End quote. In the research facility, Thel Orn found Sujin working late, running simulations of Earth's defensive capabilities. She looked exhausted and frightened. They're coming to punish us for helping you, she said quietly. The Drakhoon. They're coming to destroy everything we've built. Thelorn placed a crystalline hand on her shoulder. Through the gentle, telepathic connection, she felt his emotions. Gratitude, determination, and something else. Hope. You saved us when no one else would, he communicated. You gave us home when we had none. You taught us that kindness still exists in this galaxy. Now, it is our turn. Our ships may be old, but they still fly. Our people may be few, but we still fight. You stood for us. We will stand with you. Similar scenes played out across the planet. The Velthara were mobilizing. Their old colony ship, repaired and enhanced with human technology, was being prepared for flight. Younger Velthara, who had never expected to see combat, were volunteering for ship crews. They had found home. They would defend it. On his farm, Kiwon watched his Velthara neighbors preparing to leave. The father of the family approached him, and through gestures and limited telepathic connection, made his intention clear. He was joining the defense fleet. Kiwon wanted to object. Wanted to tell him to stay safe, stay hidden. But he understood. This man wasn't fighting for Earth. He was fighting for home. For the first place in the galaxy that had treated his family with dignity, they embraced two fathers who had become friends across the barriers of species and language. 28 days after the ultimatum, Admiral Hyun-woo Park stood on the bridge of the Horizon, positioned at the edge of the solar system. Around him, Earth's fleet had gathered, 70 ships, including military vessels, civilian transports retrofitted with weapons, and science ships turned into support craft. It was everything Earth could spare, while still protecting the home planet. And beside them flew the Velthara ships. Their crystalline hulls caught the light of distant stars, beautiful and strange. There weren't many, perhaps 20 vessels in total, but they were there. Admiral, sensors are detecting incoming vessels, reported the tactical officer. Count is, sir, it's over 400 ships. All Drakhoon Empire signatures, 400 to 90. The math was simple. The outcome seemed inevitable. Hyun-woo took a deep breath. He opened a communication channel, broadcasting on all frequencies. His words would be heard by his fleet, by the Drakhoon, by Earth, and by anyone else listening across the stars. Drakhoon Fleet, this is Admiral Hyun-woo Park of Earth. You come here to punish us for compassion, for refusing to let fear dictate morality, for choosing to help those who needed help. You want us to surrender innocent people to you, people whose only crime was being different, being afraid, being in need. He paused, looking at the tactical display showing the overwhelming enemy numbers. We will not surrender them. We will not apologize for helping them, and we will not move aside. If you want to harm them, you will have to go through us. Every ship in this fleet, every person who remembers what it means to be decent, what it means to be human. His voice grew stronger. Come ahead if you must. But know that you're not fighting a military fleet. You're fighting an idea. The idea that kindness matters, that compassion isn't weakness, that helping others, even when it costs us, is the measure of who we are. The channel closed, the fleet waited, and across the galaxy, countless species listened to a small blue planet making its stand. The Drak'Hun fleet advanced in perfect formation. 400 warships, each one larger and more powerful than anything in Earth's fleet. Admiral Hyunwoo watched them approach on his tactical display, knowing that within hours, everything could be over. On Earth, billions of people watched the same displays. In homes, schools, offices, and public squares, humans and Velthara stood together, waiting. Children held their parents' hands. Elderly ones remembered other wars, other last stands. Everyone understood what was at stake. In Geneva, Secretary General Shin sat in her office, watching the fleet positions. She had done everything she could. The decision was made. Earth had chosen its path. Now they would face the consequences together. Her communication terminal blinked. An incoming message. Not from the Drak'Hun. From somewhere else. She opened it, and her breath caught. It was from the Prenti, the amphibious refugees who had sent desperate messages to Earth. But this wasn't another plea for help. This was something else entirely. Earth stood for others. Now others stand for Earth. We are coming. Before she could process the message, another came in. Then another. And another. The Keth. The Mirana. Species she had never heard of. Small civilizations. Minor powers. Refugees who had been watching Earth's experiment. All of them sending the same message. We are coming. At the edge of the solar system, Admiral Hyunwoo's tactical officer suddenly shouted, "Sir! New contacts. Multiple jump signatures. They're appearing behind our position." Hyunwoo spun, expecting the worst. A Drak'Hun flanking maneuver. They were surrounded. But what appeared on his screens made him freeze in disbelief. Ships. Dozens of them. Hundreds of them. Small vessels. Old vessels. Ships that looked like they had been cobbled together from spare parts and hope. They bore markings from species he barely recognized, and they were positioning themselves alongside Earth's fleet. "Admiral," his communication officer said in wonder. "We're receiving hails from everyone. They're saying they've come to help." The Velthara ships moved forward, their crystalline hulls shimmering. Lithara's voice came through, broadcast to every ship in both fleets. She spoke through telepathy, but somehow, everyone understood. Human, Drak'Hun, and all the species in between. "You expelled us," she said. "Every world we approached. Every council member we begged. You turned us away because we were different. Because you were afraid. But Earth remembered something you forgot. Earth remembered that difference is not danger. That fear is not wisdom. That the measure of civilization is not in its weapons, but in its willingness to extend hands instead of fists." More ships continued to arrive. The Prenti fleet. Small, but determined. The Keth vessels. Strange and beautiful. Others whose names Hyunwoo didn't even know yet. All of them refugees. All of them outcasts. All of them remembering that Earth had offered hope when the galaxy offered only closed doors. On the Drak'Hun flagship, Commander Vecnar watched the displays with growing unease. His fleet still outnumbered the opposition. But the mathematics had changed. And more importantly, something else had changed. Something he didn't have experience calculating. The galaxy was watching. Every species. Every world. They were seeing Earth's stand. They were seeing refugees from across the galaxy, coming to defend the one planet that had shown them kindness. And they were asking themselves uncomfortable questions about the Galactic Council's decisions. "Commander," his second officer said quietly, "we could still win this engagement. But the political cost." Vecnar understood. Attacking now wouldn't just be a military action against Earth. It would be an attack on everyone who had come to defend it. An attack on the very idea of refugee rights and compassion. The Council's legitimacy was already shaky after years of harsh policies. This could shatter it completely. But pride was a powerful force. The Empire had issued an ultimatum. To back down now would be to show weakness. Admiral Hyunwoo opened a communication channel, broadcasting to the Drakhoon fleet. But his words were careful, measured. He understood that Commander Vecnar needed a way out, a way to retreat without losing face. "Commander Vecnar," he said, "you came here to enforce the Council's decision, to punish Earth for accepting refugees. But look around you. The galaxy has made a different decision, not through Council votes, not through committees and protocols, but through action, through choice, through solidarity." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "You have a choice now. You can attack us. You might even win. But you'll be attacking not just Earth, but everyone who has come to stand with us. You'll be attacking the idea that compassion matters, that helping others is not a crime. And history will remember that choice." Another pause. "Or you can report back to the Council that the situation has changed. That Earth is not standing alone. That perhaps the galaxy needs to reconsider its policies on refugees and asylum. There is no shame in recognizing that circumstances have evolved. There is wisdom in adapting to new realities." Long moments passed. The fleets faced each other across the void. Weapons were charged. Shields were active. Everyone waited for the first shot, but it never came. Commander Vecnar's image appeared on the communication screen. His reptilian features were unreadable, but his words were clear. "The Empire will withdraw," he said formally. "To reassess the situation. This matter requires further Council deliberation." It wasn't an apology. It wasn't an admission of wrong. But it was enough. The Drakhoon fleet turned and jumped away, vanishing into faster-than-light travel. The confrontation was over, without a single shot fired. On the Horizon's bridge, Hyunwoo felt his knees go weak. They had survived. Earth had survived. Not through military might, but through something more powerful. Through the simple act of doing what was right and inspiring others to do the same. The communication channels erupted with cheers, messages of celebration from hundreds of ships representing dozens of species. For a moment, the diversity of the galaxy was united in shared relief and joy. Back on Earth, the celebrations were equally jubilant. Streets filled with people dancing, crying, embracing. Velthera and humans, celebrating together. In Kiwon's village, the Velthera father who had joined the fleet would be coming home. All across the planet, families would be reunited. But Secretary General Shin was already thinking ahead. She sent messages to every species that had come to Earth's defense. An invitation, a proposal, a dream of something better. "You came when we needed you," she wrote. "You stood with us when standing carried risk. Now let us stand together. Not in opposition to the Galactic Council, but as an alternative. A community based on different principles, on acceptance rather than exclusion, on cooperation rather than fear. Let us show the galaxy what we can build together." The responses came quickly. "Yes, we will join. We agree. Count us in." Within weeks, the first meeting of what would become the Coalition of Open Worlds took place on Earth. Representatives from 40 species gathered in Geneva. Some were refugees like the Velthara. Some were minor powers tired of the Council's heavy-handed policies. Some were simply idealists who believed the galaxy could be better. They drafted a charter. It was simple. Any species that committed to peace, to respecting refugee rights, to cooperative problem-solving, could join. No species would be rejected for being different. No species would be persecuted for being afraid. Differences would be celebrated, not feared. The Galactic Council watched these developments with concern. Several council members began quiet negotiations. Some expressed interest in reforming the council's policies. Others remained rigid, insisting that order required strict control. But the galaxy had changed, and it couldn't be changed back. 10 years passed. Kiwon Park, now 83, walked slowly through his rice fields. The Velthara families that had settled on his land were still there, now joined by Prenti farmers who had discovered they loved working with water and soil. The village had become famous across Earth and beyond, a place where integration worked, where different species lived in harmony. He watched children playing. Human children, Velthara children, Prenti, younglings, even a few Keth youth, whose silicon bodies sparkled in the sunlight. They played games that borrowed from all their cultures. They spoke in a mixture of languages and telepathy and gesture. They simply were together, the way children could be when adults didn't teach them to fear difference. In Seoul, Sujin cut the ribbon on the new coalition headquarters. The building was a masterpiece of combined architectural styles. Human design, Velthara crystalline structures, Prenti water features, Keth mineral integration. It was strange and beautiful and completely unique. It looked like the galaxy could look, if the galaxy chose cooperation over division. Dr. Yuna Choi stood at a podium, addressing a gathering of scientists from 20 species. She was older now, her hair showing gray, but her eyes were still bright with curiosity and wonder. When I first touched minds with Lithara, she said, I saw her people's pain, their rejection, their desperation, and I made a choice to help. Not because I knew it would lead to all this. Not because I expected rewards or recognition, but because it was the right thing to do. She looked out at the diverse audience. We've learned so much from each other. My human colleagues have learned from Velthara telepathy, from Prenti fluid dynamics, from Keth mineral biology. We've made breakthroughs we never imagined. But the most important thing we've learned is this: we are stronger together. Our differences are not weaknesses to overcome, they are strengths to embrace. In Geneva, Secretary General Shin, now retired but still active in coalition affairs, met with a young journalist. It was Jiwoo Nam, still covering the story she had started a decade ago. What do you think your legacy will be? Jiwoo asked. Shin smiled. I don't think about legacy. I think about the Velthara child I saw yesterday, playing with a human child in the park. Neither of them thinking about species or politics, just playing. That's legacy enough. Admiral Hyun-woo Park stood on the bridge of the UNS Unity, a new ship built with combined coalition technology. He was preparing to respond to another distress call. Another species in need. Another chance to offer help. His crew was diverse now. Humans, Velthara, Prenti, Keth, and others. They worked together seamlessly, each contributing their unique perspectives and abilities. Captain, his communication officer said, we're receiving a distress signal. Unknown species. They're requesting asylum. Hyun-woo smiled. Set course, maximum speed, and send them a message. Tell them help is coming. Tell them they're not alone anymore. Center it. Tell them they're not alone anymore. On Earth, in a classroom, a teacher asked students to write about what the Velthara arrival meant. Hana Song's daughter, born after the crisis, raised her hand. Teacher, she said, my mom told me that people were scared, that they didn't know if helping was right, but they helped anyway. And that's what makes us human. Not that we're perfect, but that we try to be better, even when it's hard, even when it costs us. The teacher smiled. That's exactly right. Somewhere in the galaxy, on a world that had recently joined the coalition, a child looked up at the stars and asked her parent, are we alone? The parent, remembering old fears and new hopes, replied, no, little one. We're not alone. Not anymore. The galaxy is big and full of different people, and we're learning, slowly, to be a family. And across the void, on thousands of worlds, billions of beings were learning the same lesson. That strength comes from unity. That difference enriches rather than threatens. That compassion is not weakness but the highest form of courage. The galaxy had expelled the Velthara, but Earth had welcomed them. And in doing so, Earth had reminded the galaxy what civilization truly meant. It meant standing together. It meant helping those in need. It meant choosing hope over fear, compassion over cruelty, unity over division. It meant being better than you were yesterday, and trying again tomorrow to be better still. And that lesson, born from one species' decision to help refugees, spread across the stars like light driving back the darkness. Not all at once, not everywhere at the same time, but steadily, persistently, inevitably, because some ideas, once born, cannot be killed. Some truths, once spoken, cannot be silenced. And some acts of kindness echo across the galaxy for generations, reminding everyone who witnesses them that we are all, in the end, the same. We are travelers in the void. We are seekers of home. We are beings who fear and hope and love, and we are stronger together than we ever could be apart.